911, what's your emergency?
There's something outside. It's at the window. It's smiling at me. Hello book nerds, welcome back to In Between the Lines. If you're new here, hello, my name is Noah, and we basically just do reviews on anything that is inscribed on dead trees, because apparently we're all about that morbidness this month with Don't Die July. So just a bit of a heads up, my voice will not be the best in this video, which I apologize for. I have glandular fever, so good times rolling. So on this fine day, we are talking about The Creeper by A.M.Shine. Now, this is roughly around 313 pages. It was published in 2022, and I guess you could say this is like a folklore type of horror. It's the first time I've read anything by this author or anything in that sort of like subgenre. And I have to admit, I actually really did enjoy this. But we're going to do what we normally do, is where we talk about the story, and then we dive into like what we review and how we rate things, which is characters, story / plot, world building, rereadability, and fun factor. But we're just going to go straight into the story. So for the story, we have Dr. Alec Sparling, I believe is how you pronounce it, who is a renowned academic who decides to hire two people, Ben French, who is a historian, and Chloe Coogan, who is an archaeologist. And I'm so happy I was able to say that there, because normally I fail. Basically, he hires them to go and check out a very remote village in Ireland. It's very isolated and pretty much a forgotten place. There's nothing in the history books about this place. It's just an unknown and closed off from the world, basically. So when Ben and Chloe arrive at the village, the locals don't want anything to do with them. They basically won't tell them anything. They are very closed off, and then they go into what we like to call a little lockdown, because they are scared of some form of nameless thing that they will not tell Ben and Chloe while they're there trying to do a bit of research about this place. That is until a little shitling, a little girl, who decides to kind of dance around the two, laughing, and decides to tell them this. 3 times you see him. The first night, he's far away. And then the next night, he's closer, so close that you can see him, and he can see you. Then on the 3rd night, his big ugly face is at your window. The 4th night is your last one, because then, uh-oh. And the uh-oh thing is something that I love, because that is very much what a kid would say. And how they would do things, because kids are creepy. Basically, as soon as this little girl tells them this little bit of information, the only bit of information they're really very much given, everything just kind of goes downhill from there. And that's basically the start of the premise of the story. Is they've been hired to go and research this little village, and they get a little bit of information, and because they get this little bit of information, for this little bit of knowledge, things just kind of open up and go downhill from that point for them. Very much in what I like to say is a very Lovecraftian thing, because that's pretty much what Lovecraft is about, is the forbidden knowledge that is given to someone, and then everything just gets fucked up. And obviously with me being a huge Lovecraft fan, I loved this part of it. So, we're going to go and dive into the bit of where I do the reviews. This is where I talk about the characters, the story and plot, the world building, the rereadability, and the fun factor. And I give you a little bit of what my thoughts are to this. So, characters, the main characters there's a few little bit of characters, obviously, especially when it comes to the locals in the little village. I'm not going to really talk about them, because that's something separate, and if you want to know about them, you're going to have to just read the book. So, Alex Sparling, he's a older gentleman. He's kind of this little bit of another enigma in the story, because we don't really know much about him, apart from that he's very set in his ways when it comes to time. He's very time orientated, and for very specific reasons that we find out in the book. We also don't really know what he is a doctor of, academic of. it's a little bit of information that isn't really given to us, but you know, he's got the money behind it, which is the thing there that goes well with the story. We have Ben French, our main guy, very youngish man. He's graduated as a historian. He's very much a failed graduate though. And when I first started reading this, I didn't like him as a character, and it's not because he's this failed graduate. I think it was more the fact that he's basically this failed. He has this failed father trope that's kind of attached to him, to this 3-year-old girl. But as we get to know a little bit of information that's given to us, that is fed to us as we read the book, that bit that I didn't like about him just kind of ebbed away, and I started being more comfortable with him as a character, but also feeling a little bit more sorry towards him, because you know what, he was dealt a hand and he did what he could, and he's trying to be better, and I like that about his character because it gives him this sort of depth. He's not just this one-dimensional father trope. It's basically, yeah, I was his hand, you know what, here's the other things about me that people don't really know, and this is what I'm working with, and I like that. Then we have Chloe Coogan. Now, I actually really liked Chloe. She's an archaeologist. I think her character's very much. I think maybe the mid-20s. I can't remember. They never really talk about age, but it's assumed that they're both youngish. Now, I really like Chloe as a character because she's that quirky character. She's not the comic relief. There isn't a comic relief character in this, but she's very much the comfort blanket that we have. She's this safety net for us. And we like that about her because not only she is that comfort for us, she also has a positive outlook, and she's generally a positive character in general, which is lovely compared to all the other stuff that is happening around. So I like her character. She's quirky, she has her moments, she says certain things, and the way she reacts to situations, you know what? I think a lot of us would react that way, but also same could be said for Ben, because the way he reacts about certain things, I'm pretty sure I would react the same way too. Now we're going to dive into the story and plot. So we've talked about the story, about how they are approached and basically hired, which is a fantastic story. I love that story. It works well. The plot itself, it flows very well. While a lot of people with this, because it's a very descriptive story, and I love this about the story because it makes things easier to imagine, especially when it comes to the atmosphere and the feeling of claustrophobia, which is perfect, and it flows so well. A lot of people find that it can be a bit slow, but I genuinely enjoyed the pace of this book. I think it went very well for what it was trying to do, especially with this being the first time me reading this type of like folklore type of story. I like it. World building, you know, world building is difficult. I've never been to Ireland. I do terrible Irish accents, and I'm not even going to attempt to do that because that would be very, very bad. But it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing that the world building isn't really there, because you know why? They're going to this unknown place, and because it's an unknown place and it doesn't have roads, because technology is like, they don't have technology in this village. It's closed off from the world. It's dead. It doesn't exist the rest of the world. I like that. So yeah, it's going to have this unknown sort of factor to it, which is fine. It works very well for what it wants to do. There's not much else to say for that. It just does it very well. Some people will find it a bit difficult with it being such an unknown sort of area. But it is what it is. It works well with what it's got. Re-readability. Absolutely, I will happily read this book again. It's very well done. It's very clever. And it was just a very good read. You know, I think that I'm going to struggle with these types of reads, but I don't. It just, as soon as I started, it just flowed until it got to a point where I was like, oh, it's getting a bit late. I've just realized how late it is. I've been reading for like a couple of hours. It's very, very good. Fun factor, I mean, I don't know what's fun about folklore, especially when it comes to horror. I like the creepiness of it. Pun intended, who knows? When it comes to fun factor, it's a bit difficult when it comes to folklore and with horror, because with it being horror, a lot of people don't find that type of thing very fun. I enjoy these type of stories. It's the first time I've done folklore, but I enjoy horror in general. It is a fun read. It has some quirky bits where I think, you know what? I would react the same way. So, rating-wise, I was originally going to give this a 5-star. I genuinely was. But I'm only going to give it a 4-star. Big shock and horror, I know. Now, the only reason as to why... Let me backpedal a little bit. The story is fantastic. I really enjoyed it. The ending, I did not expect. Definitely didn't expect it with a folklore. Take that as you will. World building, yeah, you know, it's this unknown place, but I'm not going to know anything about it. Sometimes for people that can be a bit off-putting, and that's probably why I've moved it down a little bit. But, like I said, it's not a bad thing that this is this unknown space, this unknown village, because it works well. It works well with the atmosphere, it works well with the claustrophobia of them being connected and disconnected from everyone else, is what I meant to say. Rereadability, absolutely, and the fun factor, yeah, I will read this again, and I very much enjoyed the way that Mr. Shine actually wrote. I enjoyed that thoroughly. And I know that they have another book called, I think it's The Watchers, which I definitely need to get my hands on. Because I genuinely, really thoroughly enjoyed this book. Now, I don't know if I expect it to be a bit more horror. I don't know, because normally I read like body horror sort of stuff. So this was very much a different way to go for me. But it was creepy, it kept the atmosphere, it had me feeling claustrophobic and cut off from everyone else around me, which is lovely to do. The descriptions in the book were fantastic. For example, it is so hard for some authors to do this, which is, let's say there's a chase scene, and it's described so well and so fast that it's going bop, 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 and you're imagining it as each time it's telling you these little bits, these little descriptions that work so freaking well, you can't imagine it perfectly. Only one author has done that where I can actually imagine it perfectly, and that is Lovecraft with The Shadow over Innsmouth, where there is a chase scene, and what A.M.Shine has actually done in this book is when there's certain bits that are happening, it's giving me that same sort of feeling, that same sort of description, same sort of imagination where I can see it happening, and I love that about that book. So yeah, I'm definitely going to read this again. I'm definitely going to find The Watchers, the other book. I definitely need to delve more into them because I genuinely like their writing. I'm a bit of a fan now. There we go. That's all I'm going to say about that, but thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Stay awesome, make good decisions in life, and let's try to survive a little bit longer. I'll catch you next time. Cheers.
I've known and I've known some. Until I first met you, I was lonesome. And when you came inside, dear, my heart grew light and the soul